We're still just cranking them. Boom, 1.1 mil. Another one, blink in so that it has less travel time. Hits about 1 million. And you can see that you can actually delete people pretty quickly using this build. Yo, YouTube, what is good? In this video, we're going to be discussing Spellslinger Frostmage, a little guide on how to play it, and why I do believe that this is a good build in certain scenarios, when to play this build and when it's actually good to play over the Frostfire instant cast build. I do want to preface and say that for arenas, for the majority of people, in most cases, if you're looking for a build to insta lock pretty much every single game, never change your build no matter what, the Frostfire instant cast build is still that build. It's still really good, even though it has been nerfed multiple times. It's still definitely the most dominant build on a Frostmage. However, I do believe that whenever this build works, it is also extremely good. First of all, I want to show you some clips of some games from when I was playing the Frostbolt build on the first day of testing. So let's go ahead and roll those clips now. All right, so we have two clips here. One of these games is going to be into a Beast Mastery Hunter and a Disciplined Priest in an arena match. You can see here we're loading in. First things first, you have to cast a lot as this build. So what am I doing here? The Hunter is you know, he has this kick available, so I try to get that shit out of the way, start the game off with some instant casts. So I drop my orb to generate some Ice Lance procs. Boom, I get interrupted. At this point, I'm like, okay, it's time to go crazy. So I drop the Veins, the Ring of Fire. We get the stun going out. What am I doing? I'm trying to ramp up my Slick Ice stacks. Again, we'll go over these talents here in a second. But just to show you a little bit here, I'm hitting the target that's out in the open at this point now. No kicks are available. So one Frostbolt, Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. I get stunned, trinket out of that, another Frostbolt here, and you can see we're hitting a 1 mil there. We already got the second Frostbolt loaded up because our cast time on Frostbolt is very reduced whenever you're playing Slick Ice. You can see I get another one going out there. It doesn't crit, hits for about 600,000. Then we get another one in there, boom, crits for about 900. We're still just cranking them, boom, 1.1 mil. Another one, blink in so that it has less travel time. Hits about 1 million, and you can see that you can actually delete people pretty quickly using this build. Now we have another clip here. This one I've already ramped up my Frostbolt stacks. So what am I doing? I'm hitting the target out that is out in the open. So I have a Flurry on him. I'll just go ahead and cast two Frostbolts. One hits for 1.3 mil. The second one hits for 1.2 mil. Two Frostbolts. This guy's already half HP. Boom, another one hits 1.5 mil. So what I do, I kick him on Shadow, cast some more. That one unfortunately not critting. Okay. And yeah, so you can see the damage numbers that this build is putting out is insane, right? It is capable of doing a lot of damage. Now let's talk about how that works and when I think playing this build is actually a viable and beneficial thing to do. Okay, so guys, when are we going to be playing the Frostbolt build over the Frostfire build? With the Spellslinger Frostbolt build, you are a Veins class. So during your Veins, you are God mode. You do so much casted damage. It's crazy. Back-to-back 1.5 million Frostbolts, and they have basically 0 cast time. They're very quick. So what is a scenario where Frostmage can actually do that? And what scenario is it actually good to do that over playing Frostfire? So in my eyes, there's two situations. There is in an arena match, whenever you are playing with another caster who will be trained over you. So a weaker caster than yourself, or something that if a melee trains that, they will stop more damage. So one example I can think of is melees typically don't like to train frost mages because of how mobile they are. So if you're playing mage SP and an SP is not very mobile, you could definitely get away with playing the Frostbolt build, because a lot of the times against two high-rated melees, they'll understand that they will get out-mobility'd by a Frost Mage. In an arena environment, that's maybe one scenario if you're playing God Comp with an SP. Another situation could be if you're playing with a Warlock. I wouldn't recommend playing this build with a melee because most of the time you'll be the target. This build is good when you are not the target. Try to identify if you will be targeted. If not, you could potentially play this build. Now in Battleground Blitz, this is really good in a team fight environment. In a team fight, keep in mind all these Frostbolts are going to be AoE. While Icy Veins is active, your Frostbolts hit up to 2 additional targets. So not only are you going to be doing these 1.5 million Frostbolts, it will be cleaving the whole team. So in team fights, this is a lot more damage than the instant cast Frostfire build. But not on every single map is it a team fight oriented style of gameplay. So let's take, for example, Twin Peaks, Warsong Gulch. On these maps, it's kind of more about having single target damage to kill the flag carrier, right? Not really about winning some team fight to cap a flag. You can kind of think about about it like that. So maybe on those maps you wouldn't want to play this build, but on a map where it's maybe Silver Shard, where the whole fight is potentially, you know, everyone is on a certain cart and you guys are trying to fight for that cart, or maybe something like Arathi Basin where it's very team fight oriented as well, could be solid pick. I do want to say that outside of Veins, the Frostbolt build is pretty weak. So you are a Veins based class. That is kind of always how the Frostbolt build has worked. During Veins, you enter complete God mode. Outside of Veins, not so much. One thing a lot of people will ask is, do I play Ice Form? I don't think Ice Form is bad. The fact that it only lasts 17 seconds doesn't synergize very well with Slick Ice and how many Frostbolts you actually have to cast. So if I were to play Ice Form, for one, it's purgeable. So at higher rated lobbies, you will get purged on it. You lose the haste. So the Frostbolts you're casting are not fast and you need to cast a lot of them. And another thing too is Veins last for 30 seconds, which gives you a lot more time to get value out of these modifiers that you're stacking up. So I don't recommend playing it. Like I said, it's not terrible, but it's pretty bad. So definitely don't recommend playing Ice Form here. Now, to go over the build a little bit, you can see the build here where we're rocking a couple different talents that aren't in the Frostfire build. Rocking like Brain Freeze, because Frostbolt, you'll be casting a lot of these. Frostbolt having a 30% chance to reset the cooldown of Flurry is going to ensure that you can continue to shatter these Frostbolts. Another one that we're rocking with here is the Frozen Touch, which gives you Fingers of Frost 25% more often, and Brain Freeze 20% more often, so that's also very important. Deep Shatter, very important. Frostbolt dealing 25% additional damage to frozen targets. Now we'll go down and look at some of the other Frostbolt talents that we have here. Slick Ice, this is a major key talent when playing the Frostbolt build. While Icy Veins is active, each Frostbolt that you cast reduces the cast time of Frostbolt by 4% and increases the damage by 4%. And it stacks up to 5 times. So after 5 Frostbolts, you'll be fully ramped, and with the haste that you have from Icy Veins, those 5 Frostbolts will be pretty quick. Then you have Fractured Frost. This basically just makes your Frostbolt AoE. While Veins is active, your Frostbolts hit up to 2 additional targets and increases the damage by 15%. So another Frostbolt modifier with Veins up. The last one here, Veins is active. Damaging an enemy with Frostbolt increases the spell damage by 1%, and that will stack up to 15 times. Now keep in mind, this is going to stack up very fast too if there's a lot of targets. It's every time you damage an enemy with Frostbolt, your Frostbolts are hitting 3 targets. So every single Frostbolt, as long as there's more than 3 targets stacked, will give you an extra 3%. Or yeah, so it'll give you 3 stacks, and then that will take pretty much just the same amount of time as stacking the Slick. So basically 5 Frostbolts. After you pop Veins, you'll be fully ramped, and then you can start doing a crazy amount of damage. You'll see some talents we aren't playing. So we're not playing Freezing Winds. This talent is nerfed in PvP to 5 seconds. So we're not playing this. We're losing out a little bit of Ice Lance generation there. You can see we're not running Flash Freeze, so less icicle damage, and we're losing out on the Fingers of Frost proc chance on the icicles. Not too bad there. And then Ice Caller, we're not resetting our Frozen Orb with Blizzard anymore, but we are still playing Instant Blizzard because it's nice in BGs to be able to instantly just create a nice snared area with your orb windows. The reason we're not playing the reset on the orb is because with Spell Slinger, we're actually getting orb resets due to Spell Frost teachings. Direct damage from these splinters has a small chance to reset the cooldown of Frozen Orb, and it will increase all damage dealt by Frozen Orb by 20%. Now, that's pretty much all there really is to know about Spell Slinger. You can basically just think of it like whenever you consume a Winter's Chill, you fire a splinter, which you can kind of think of as like another icicle. It's just more pad damage. You can see there's a bunch of modifiers in here. So another Frozen Orb, 10%. This is going to synergize very well with Everlasting, which is 30%, and makes your orb last longer. In BG Blitz, we're definitely playing Concentrated Coolness, which is another 10%, and allows you to place your orb strategically instead of just kind of throwing it out. During Veins, you instantly get the 8 Frost Splinters, so that's going to be just kind of like whenever you pop Veins, it'll do a decent amount of damage and proc your Splinter Storm, which will apply a Winter's Chill to the target, so a free Winter's Chill upon activating Veins. This one's very nice. 5% increased critical strike damage and 2% increased critical strike chance. The higher chance that your Frostbolts will crit, and you get the higher critical strike damage. These ones are sort of your mobility ones, so you can either have 40% movement during altar or a longer displacement. There really is no better option here. I think it definitely just comes down to personal preference. I prefer the movement speed during battlegrounds. And then this one, of course, Ice Barrier can absorb up to 50% more based on your missing HP. I believe this is actually 25% in PvP. The lower your HP, the higher your barrier, and that will help you in those sticky situations. Pretty much all we need to know about the build. Mage side of the tree is completely, like just normal. Now let's start getting into how to actually play the build. Alright, so when it comes to doing damage on this build, one thing I want to note here before we begin is that we don't actually have target dummies that have working PvP modifiers. So if you look at the damage on details and you see, for example, 800,000 is the peak Frostbolt on a PvP dummy, That's simply how it is because no PvP dummies actually have the modifiers attached to them. So on players, these numbers would be, I think, what is Frostbolt at right now? Like 45% more increased damage. So basically we're looking at details here with 45% less damage. Don't look at details and like get in your own head a little bit like, why are my Frostbolts hitting that hard? That's simply why. Another thing to note here is that on these training dummies, they aren't stacked up enough, so we won't be getting as much value out of Fractured Frost because they won't be cleaving as much. This is sort of just a demonstration of how to actually press your buttons. This is not a, this is what the peak rotation is looking like. This is how do we actually pop veins and do damage. That's what we're trying to learn right here. If we take this dummy right here, we can go ahead and start discussing what we want to do to begin. So first things first, we want to get our dots on the target, same as the instant cast build. So we want to probably put a ring of fire down, then an orb, then we can blizzard, spend our flurry, then we'll pop veins. At that point, after you pop veins, your pet will come out and water jet, and that will essentially give you another flurry. Then you want to drop the comment on them. At this point, now that you have all your dots applied to the target, you can start bursting, trying to build up your slick ice stacks. That's when you want to start spamming Frostbolts. Now, the way you're going to be doing damage is really like Frostbolt, Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. Once you're at 5 icicles, you spend a Lance proc, so you can send all of your icicles in. So we can go ahead and do that. Ring of Fire, Orb, Blizzard, Flurry, Veins, Comet. Now we want to start Frostbolting, so we can build up slick ice. So we'll do 2 Frostbolts into that Winter's Chill. Frostbolt, Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. Then we go ahead and press Ice Lance to spend all of our procs. We do another Frostbolt, Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. Now, since we have an Orb Reset proc, we'll go ahead and put that out. Lance to spend Icicles, Frostbolt, Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. So you can see here we're at 5 Slick Ice stacks. So we keep doing Frostbolt, Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. And now we're at 5 Icicles. Send those in. We can try to shatter some of these with Ice Nova. Since we're playing Sub-Zero, we can get a little bit more value with those. Boom, Frostbolt, Flurry, send in the Icicles, maybe Comet Storm. You can put your orb down when you get the procs. Make sure you're constantly getting Ring of Fires down if there's a good triple stack opportunity. Now that you're kind of out of veins, that's when you start going a little bit more instant cast. So we'll do like Frostbolt Flurry, or sorry, Flurry into Lance. Now that I have some, no procs, I can do Frostbolt Flurry, Lance. At this point, this would be a solid shifting power because you want to start farming back that Veins cooldown. Sometimes you'll get Veins procs, so you can send those in. Veins, Frostbolt, Pet Nova, Frostbolt, Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. Send in the Icicles, Flurry, Comet Storm, get your dots back up on the target. Put a Blizzard down, consume those 2 Winter Shields with Lances. And that's kind of your priority there. So let's actually take a second to go back and watch this rotation in a little bit more depth so we can kind of slow it down for you guys. All right, guys, we're watching the rotation back here. We have it in about 0.5 speed, aka half speed, so we can break down global at a pace that everyone can learn from. If we sort of just start the clip here, the reason we're applying target dots to our target first, aka you have kind of 3-ish dots, maybe 4 if you consider Comet Storm. But think about it like this. If you are pressing Frostbolt, Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt on a target, how much damage are you doing, right? You're doing as much damage as the Frostbolt, as much damage as the Flurry is doing, as much damage as the Frostbolts are doing. But if you have the target dotted first, aka you have a Ring of Fire on the target, you have an Orb on the target, you have a Blizzard taking on the target, all these dots are adding more burst to the burst damage that you're doing. So before you start bursting a target, it's really good to try to preemptively dot the target. This is also a low commitment thing to do. By casting a Ring of Fire first, by orbing first, by blizzarding first, you're not committing your damage yet. You haven't popped your veins, you haven't been starting to go into Frostbolts yet. This is the time where when people start targeting you, it's not the worst possible thing. You still have a little bit of time to get away and create some distance for yourself so you can actually pop the veins. This is just a nice way to, let's call it, juice up the target. You kind of butter them up a little bit, get them dotted, so that when you start bursting them, the damage is even higher since they have all these extra debuffs on them. So you can see here, we've already procced at least 4 debuffs on the target. So we have the Ring of Fire, we have the Orb, we have the Blizzard. Now with that ability there, whenever they're in the Blizzard, the Splinters are going to AoE to everyone. So that's an extra little added bit of damage. So now that we have all of our dots on the target, we press a Flurry. You can see that here. The reason we do that is when we pop our veins, we have this ability down here called Water Jet. It gets activated and gives us another Flurry charge. Just to not overcap on flurries, that's why we're doing that. We call down the Comet Storm after popping veins here. So now we have full dots on the target, and these are all being shattered by that first Flurry there. So that debuff, whenever you Flurry a target, is going to leave something called Winter's Chill. Whenever Winter's Chill is on the target, every spell that hits the target will act as if that target were frozen, aka gives you the increased critical strike chance of shatter. Frost mages, if you're doing damage to frozen targets, it gives you a very, very high crit chance on them. They're only direct spells actually consume Winter's Chill. So the pet damaging it, the orb damaging it, the blizzard ticking, the comet ticking, all of these are getting the bonus from this Winter's Chill, but aren't actually consuming it. These are mainly for your Frostbolts and Ice Lances. We have a lot of damage rolling out on the target. We've already done almost 3 million damage AoE, almost 4. And then at this point, this is when we start actually pressing Frostbolt. Well, the reason we're doing this is that so we can stack up Slick Ice. So the more Frostbolts we cast, the more damage they do, and they are faster. The first Frostbolt here, we're not setting a flurry since we already had one on the target. They'd already accessed if it were frozen. So these first 2 Frostbolts, boom, one of them crits. Like I said, the damage is a bit lower because the PvP dummies don't have the modifiers. At this point, we're going to just keep spamming Frostbolts. Now, at this point, we don't have a Winter's Chill on the target, so after this Frostbolt, we need to Flurry, and that will get the Shatter bonus from it, and leave 2 Winter's Shields on the targets. So these next 2 Frostbolts, we will simply just cast them, no Flurry. Boom. Now, at this point, we have an Orb proc from Spell Slinger. If you didn't have that, you would simply go back into Frostbolt Flurry. But when you do get one, it's good to put it down. I actually missed that global, didn't do it right away, so instead I did Frostbolt Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt, and you can see we actually fit an Ice Lance in there too. I'll back it up because I did forget to mention it. But yeah, so essentially I tracked my icicle stacks here as well. So after this Frostbolt on that last one of that Winter's Chill, I sent in the Ice Lance. The reason why I did it on the second Frostbolt after the Flurry is that you don't want the Ice Lance to actually hit the Winter's Chill. You want those for your Frostbolts. So you send that in, that'll start sending all of your icicles out, and that will do a little bit of extra damage. Now we go back into Frostbolt Flurry. We do 2 more Frostbolts here so we can shatter those. We are at 5 slicks, so we're basically fully ramped at this point. And if you had grouped targets, your Death's Chill, this buff here, would be at full as well. But since we're doing this on dummies, it's not fully optimized, not as much damage as we possibly could do. So we do another Frostbolt. We get our orb back down. Not going to be worth to put a blizzard down in this situation because we have only 15 seconds on our veins left. So we want to dish out as many Frostbolts as possible with that. So we send our Ice Lance in, which sends in the icicles. Now we're just going right back into it. Frostbolt Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. Again, you can try to shatter some of these with Novas as well. So I send another Frostbolt Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt, because you can see I'm consistently capped on flurries. So you pretty much have no... there's an endless amount that you can do. And as you can see, we're at 5 icicles again. So after that last Frostbolt on that last Winter's Chill, we'll send in a Lance. Pretty simple, right, guys? So with this Frostbolt, we actually opt to shatter that one with a Pet Nova. The Pet Nova one, basically the Pet Nova and the Ice Nova will just do 10% more, thanks to a modifier called Sub-Zero in the talent tree. Let's keep watching. We do another Frostbolt Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. And we should have an Ice Lance coming up here soon. Actually, don't know why I didn't Lance here. Yeah, you would want Lance on this global. But again, we're just doing Frostbolt, Ice Nova, Frostbolt Flurry, Frostbolt, Frostbolt. Kind of overcapping on my icicles quite a bit here. As you can see now, Veins is over, so we kind of switch gears at this point. I have the Winter's Chill on the target. I'll go ahead and put my Comet Storm out now that it's off cooldown. And we want to get our dots back up on the target because we don't really have crazy damage here. So we need dots to kind of carry us a little bit. So we get our orb down, we get our blizzard down, we get our ring of fire down. Now we kind of switch gears a little bit. We're going back to like a little bit of a hybrid build at this point. And this is going to be a little bit more lance oriented. So we're throwing more lances, we flurry, we get our blizzard down again. We do 2 lances into that because a not Veins Frostbolt is going to be less damage than an Ice Lance. So whenever you don't have Veins up, it's primarily better to use Ice Lance. You can fit a Frostbolt global in before you send a flurry because it's an extra little bit of burst and it doesn't actually consume one of the Winter's Chills. If you guys don't know how Winter's Chill works, the flurry actually hits the target 3 times. So you see how it says 2 here, then it goes down to 1 and then back to 2. And then the debuff gets reapplied because flurry hits 3 times, but the Frostbolt travels faster. So the the flurry hits, then the Frostbolt hits, then the other 2 flurry ticks hit and refresh it back to 2. So you can kind of fit in like an extra Frostbolt as a little way of min-maxing a little bit more damage before your 2 Ice Lances with this build. And then once you are completely just nothing left in the tank, that's when you hit the shifting power, try to get shit back ASAP. You can see we get a Veins proc here. So with that proc, you can start spamming a little bit of Frostbolts and get a little bit of value from those. But ultimately, like I said, you guys are pretty much a Veins class as this build. Yeah, getting some big Frostbolts with that proc there. And yeah, now we're just back to Ice Lancing because and dotting people. So Ice Lance dots, pretty much the instant cast build, sort of a hybrid with this build. But during your veins, instead of just chucking instants, you're actually casting and doing a lot more casted AoE damage. That's kind of the idea behind the build, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you guys are thinking